And if you're staying in here, open your Bibles to Ecclesiastes chapter 9. So since I've been preaching through Ecclesiastes the past few weeks in this series, and since Valentine's Day is on Wednesday, Candace very thoughtfully gave me an early Valentine's Day present related to the book of Ecclesiastes. It is a very nice hand calligraphied framed scripture verse from Ecclesiastes 9:9, which goes like this. I'll put it up on the screen. Enjoy life with your wife whom you love all the days of this meaningless life that God has given you under the sun. All your meaningless little days. For this is your lot in life and in your toilsome labor under the sun. Thanks, sweetie. Candace didn't really get me that. But actually, I like Ecclesiastes 9:9. This is a good lesson of why you should read multiple Bible translations, really. I don't know why the NIV committee chose the word meaningless or to say, this is your lot in life, because it just sounds bad. And I think they should change that. Listen to the New American Standard Version. I'll read the whole section. Because it actually captures the heart of what the teacher in Ecclesiastes is trying to tell us about enjoying life. Okay, this is Ecclesiastes 9, beginning in verse 7, New American Standard. Go then, eat your bread in happiness, and drink your wine with a cheerful heart, for God has already approved of your works. That is, God has created all these things and approves of you doing them. Let your clothes be white all the time. Let not oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the woman whom you love all the days of your fleeting life, which he has given to you under the sun. For this is your reward in life. Better than Lot, I think. This is your reward in life and in your toil in which you have labored under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. For there's no activity or planning or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol where you're going. Life is fleeting and full of toil, but if God has given you a wife or a husband to love, that is a reward in life that you should enjoy, along with the gifts of food and drink and clothing and whatever work you find to do. These verses don't promise these gifts. They admit they're fleeting. But the teacher says God has created these things and approved of them, and the verse about loving one's wife or husband stood out to me for some reason, not just because it resonates with me, that I should enjoy life with my wife whom I love for as long as God lets me, but also because it seems like romantic love in our culture is treated differently. The Bible seems to approach romantic love differently. It's worth dwelling on this, that here in Ecclesiastes, love in marriage is treated as something to be enjoyed because it's a gift from God. It's not made to be more than it is. It's set alongside the other gifts, not above them. And you contrast that with our culture, which seems to make romantic love kind of the ultimate source of meaning and fulfillment in life, especially in the sense of sexual expression and sexual fulfillment, that those are prerequisites to a life of meaning and fulfillment. In whatever way you define that or want to express yourself sexually, that's a prerequisite for a fulfilled life, which is not true, never mind the life of Jesus as an example. But everyone wants to live a meaningful life. It's just, if you remove God from the picture, you've got to fill the hole and fill the meaning from these other places. You have to decide for yourself, and you have to craft for yourself your own meaning. There was a book published a few years ago called The Power of Meaning, Crafting a Life that matters. And you hear it in the title, crafting a life that matters. The assumption is that there is no inherent meaning in life. Instead, we are each individually responsible for crafting the meaning of life, or creating whatever meaning we can find in it. This is both a great freedom, decide whatever meaning you want, and a terrible burden that you are responsible for making your life mean whatever it's going to mean. And often the songs and the movies and the stories and the books that resonate the most in our culture kind of put romantic love in that place of, this is where you find meaning and fulfillment. But one of the things that we've seen throughout Ecclesiastes is that the only way to truly enjoy the good gifts that God gives us is to recognize them as gifts and not to seek to make them into something they are not. The teacher tells us to eat, to enjoy our bread and wine and find satisfaction in our toil and to enjoy life with our spouse because they're good gifts. But none of these joys can define our identity or ultimately give us meaning, ultimate fulfillment in life. When you make work your identity, you lose the ability to rightly enjoy work as a gift from God for what it is. And when you place the burden of your identity or your fulfillment on the shoulders of someone else, that's a burden they were never meant to bear. Just like your work was never meant to bear that. Your spouse is not a means to an end, a means to fulfillment. You can't truly enjoy the gift because you have turned it into an idol, a god. That doesn't mean that romantic love doesn't make life more meaningful. I would say it absolutely does. God gave it to us to enjoy. But it gets its meaning and its significance by being a model and a reflection of the self-giving love of God. That's where it gets its meaning and its significance from. That we get to reflect the love of God in self-giving and self-sacrifice towards other people, specifically a spouse that God has given us. It's a good thing, but it too is uncertain. All of life is uncertain. You will one day lose your ability to work, and then where will your identity be? You will lose your spouse one day. The teacher in Ecclesiastes makes that point in the very next section, that life is too random and too precarious a thing for us to try to take these temporary things that we should enjoy, but to take them and to make them ultimate things. Life's too fleeting. Ecclesiastes 9, beginning in verse 11, says this. This is just after that section we read. It's on the screen. This is the NIV version. I've seen something else under the sun. The race is not to the swift or the battle to the strong, nor does food come to the wise or wealth to the brilliant or favor to the learned. But time and chance happen to them all. Moreover, no one knows when their hour will come. As fish are caught in a cruel net, or birds are taken in a snare, so people are trapped by evil times that fall unexpectedly upon them. Literally, it says, time and happenings happen to all. You can't predict what will happen. There are so many things in life that are uncertain, and the way that we think about fairness and the way that we understand our circumstances is so limited. And the teacher is not saying that life is meaningless because of that, but he is saying that it will sometimes look random, and it will sometimes look meaningless to us. Sometimes we won't be able to figure out the why. Sometimes good people will suffer for no apparent reason. A tornado will hit this house and not hit this house over here, right next to it. And that's just what happens. It's not that God is not governing all of these things. To God, it's not a surprise and it's not random. He allows the forces of nature and cause and effect to produce the tornado and all of that. But the race is not always to the swift. And things don't always work out like we plan or like we think they should. And we will not be able to answer the question of why for all of these things. Why the tornado hit my house and not their house. You will experience happenings evil times that fall unexpectedly. And that is unsettling because we sometimes think that if we're just wise enough or talented enough or strong enough or good enough, then life will turn out a certain way for us. But life, as you know, is more complicated than that. So sometimes we won't be able to find the meaning. Does that mean there is no meaning? No. So what does a life of beauty and meaning and purpose look like? Well, look back at how chapter starts. Chapter 9 in verse 1. So I reflected on all this and concluded that the righteous and the wise and what they do, say it with me, are in God's hands. What can you do if the race is not to the swift and the battle's not to the strong? What can you do if the reality of life is that you can't be swift enough or strong enough or wise enough or learned enough to ensure your outcome and control your destiny? All you can do, except that all of that and all of us and all of our lives and what we do is in God's hands. We are dependent on God for all of it. The context of your life is that you are in God's hands. And the teacher in Ecclesiastes is trying to show us the wisdom of living as though my life is not my possession. It's not mine to create the meaning for. It's not mine to figure out how to control the destiny of. It's not my possession. My living, my dying is in the Lord's hands. My life's in God's hands. Whether I make it home today or not is in the Lord's determinations, not my own. I'm not the master of my own fate or the owner of my own life. I don't supply the breath that's in my lungs. There's none of this, it's my own life, I'll do as I please. No, it's not my life. It's not a thing that I possess. Wisdom says life is a gift. It's been given to you. Not at once at a single point, but at every point. God determined the place of my birth and my family and my personality and potential and talents and intelligence, all of those things that go into making up a person. Those things weren't self-determined. And neither is the meaning of my life self-determined. It's not mine to create. Someone writes a book about meaning and says, well, here are the 5 keys to a meaningful life. Find a community where you belong and a cause that gives you purpose, and pursue personal growth, and your life will feel more meaningful. It'll feel more meaningful. Doesn't objectively mean anything. Without God, the best we can do is to feel meaningful. But the problem is, that's not enough. As part of what Ecclesiastes is going on and on about, if you remove God from the picture and all there is life under the sun, then there really is no meaning, and you just got to face up to there not being any meaning without God. And the problem is, we don't just want our lives to mean something to us, to feel meaningful to us. We need our life to mean something to others, to be meaningful. So our society is filled with people demanding to be seen and heard and understood and affirmed so that they can know that their lives mean something, not just to them, but to others. But if your life is a gift from God, if your life is in God's hands, it means something to God. And the beauty of Ecclesiastes is that the teacher is willing to acknowledge, I've looked at this from every possible angle. The randomness, the precariousness of life, and how many times it doesn't make sense. And I've concluded that we're not really supposed to know the meaning of it all. We're in God's hands. We mean something to Him. And my life and my ups and downs and in-betweens and the tragedies and the unspeakable joys all mean something to God who gave me breath. And that's true whether I can always discern the meaning or not. That's true. And the only thing that the teacher can really hold on to for certain is that if life is a gift, then part of the meaning of a gift is that a gift is meant to be received from the giver. Every good and perfect gift is from above. Every single good gift is from the hand of God. And in the absence of being able to discern all of the meaning and all of life, in the midst of what we experience as fragmented and fleeting existence and wondering, who am I, half the time, the teacher says again and again, the meaning of the gift is to receive it and to enjoy it and give thanks for it, whatever good things God gives you. He says, he keeps coming back around to this, but he comes back around at the end. Ecclesiastes 11:8. So if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in them all. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. You see both sides of this. However long you live, take delight and enjoy the years that you're given. They're a gift and they're not guaranteed. And then the next part seems to cast a shadow on that delight by saying, rejoice in them all, but let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. Is that casting a shadow? I don't know. I think what the teacher is saying is take delight in all your years and don't expect there to be no dark days. Just remember that all that comes your way is fleeting. The word translated vanity is the word for smoke or vapor, like we've talked about. It's passing, and the fleeting nature of life applies to the dark days as well as the good days. This is precisely what allows you to enjoy life. The dark days are passing too. All that comes your way is fleeting. And then he says, rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. That's super interesting, isn't it? Rejoice. Let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and the sight of your eyes. Know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. What does this mean, the way it's written? Let's look closely at this. Does the first word of that sentence influence the way that you read it? If it reads, rejoice, walk in the ways of your heart, but know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. That sounds like the teacher is telling us to enjoy life, but that's risky because it might lead to sin and God will judge sin. And I have some issues with that. First, it assumes that delight and joy is pushing us in the direction of sin. And secondly, it maybe assumes that God's judgment is there to limit or curb our delight so it doesn't get out of hand. And I grant neither premise. The verb rejoice, or take delight, is a command, okay? Something we should do. Rejoice. Let your heart cheer you, okay? Something we should do. We're told to rejoice a lot of times in the Bible, but this is one of them. Rejoice. And God doesn't command us to do things that push us in the direction of sin, I think. I think usually you could say that's probably true. Yes, okay. God doesn't command us to rejoice if that's going to lead us into sin. No. So just so that he can then wait for us to mess up and judge us. No. Nothing about the Hebrew requires the translation of this sentence to begin with the word but. It could just as easily be translated, rejoice, let your heart cheer you, walk in the ways of your heart, and know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. That's a little different. Here's why. Because it would include then judgment on whether you rejoiced or not. Rejoice and take delight in your life, especially when you're young, for all the good things, know that for all these things, God will hold you to account. For all these things, you will be held to account, held responsible for what you had done with all of God's good gifts and whether you rejoiced in them or not. Now, does that mean you'll be held to account if you go your own way and you seek to spend your life pursuing selfish pleasures? Of course, God will judge sin, and you will reap the consequences of having chased the wind and never really finding the delight and joy you sought to begin with. But it also means that God will hold you to account if you grumble and complain your way through the life he has given you. To do that would be to ignore the command to rejoice or to take joy in life. And to do that would be, I think, to spurn the goodness of God to you. And pay attention here, because we're about to get very serious about joy. In the very beginning, God gave Adam and Eve the whole world to enjoy. And the primal sin came about because Adam and Eve came to believe, through the influence of the serpent, that God was withholding something good from them. They had all the world to delight in, and it says they saw the fruit, that it was good for food and pleasing to the eye and desirable for attaining wisdom. And in reaching out to grasp after what was not given to them, they were charging God with not being good to them. Here's a good thing that I should have that God hasn't given me. As one theologian put it, this was the nerve of the serpent in Eden, to make even paradise appear as an insult, as though God was withholding something good and pleasing and desirable. And there is a way of grumbling against God and complaining against God that feels as though I've been slighted by God, that accuses God of not being good to me. And that is a repetition of the primal sin against God. And God will hold us to account for how we bore witness to his goodness or not in life. And one of the ways that we bear witness to his goodness is to take delight in the good things that he gives us. In other words, acknowledge that every good gift is from God. It's to be received, it's to be rejoiced in, it's to be given thanks for, it's to be held in gratitude. And if we grumble and complain our way through life, we spurn God's goodness. So what will the teacher say in the end? He will say this, chapter 12, the last chapter. Remember your Creator. That's verse 1. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near, of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened and the clouds return after the rain. Skip down to verse 6. Before the silver cord is snapped, or the golden bowl is broken, or the pitcher is shattered at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Vanity of the vanities, says the preacher, all is vanity. Remember your Creator when things are good. Remember your Creator when trouble overtakes us. Remember because we too often forget who gave us our life. Remember while you're still young and you feel like death is far away, because it's really not that far away. One day the silver cord is snapped, the golden bowl is broken, the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. That whole section is about death. And it's framed as a reminder that your life was never really out of God's hands. When you die, your spirit will return to God who gave it to you in the first place. So remember who gave your life, your Creator, because we forget that all we do and all we are is in his hands. Remember your Creator so that you can truly enjoy the good gifts and let them spark in you a longing for heaven, your true home. And remember your Creator when things seem meaningless and when things seem utterly hopeless, because your life is in his hands and it means something to him. And let the pain and the sorrow make you homesick for heaven just as much as the joy and delight make you homesick for heaven. And so ends the words of the teacher in Ecclesiastes. But the book is not finished yet. It's as though we get to the end of the book and someone wants to talk to us about what the teacher has said. The teacher is finished, but then the writer of the book takes up the pen and says, besides being wise, verse 9, the preacher also taught the people knowledge, weighing and studying and arranging many proverbs with great care. The preacher sought to find words of delight, and uprightly he wrote words of truth. In other words, the reason these words were preserved for us is because they contain some truth and wisdom about life. And the teacher looked at life and was able to comprehend and capture the complexity and the bewilderment of life with words and proverbs, but also sought to find words of delight to show you the way to joy. And then he says, verse 11, the words of the wise are like goads, and like nails firmly fixed are the collected sayings. They are given by one shepherd. Not only words of delight, but also words meant to wound us in some way. The reminder that you are going to die comes sharply. The reminder that all you do in life one day will be forgotten and erased by the tide of time is a blow to the ego. But this wisdom has come to you, the author says, directly from the one shepherd. The one shepherd, who is that? The one shepherd is God, who means for you to live within the limits of your creaturehood, and sometimes we need sharp words to remind us we are not God. Verse 12, my son, beware of anything beyond these. Of making many books, there is no end. There's probably a double meaning there. End can mean two different things. One, that it's never finished. You can make books again and again and again and again. It's never finished, but also it has no end. It has no purpose in it. Of making many books, there is no end, and much study is a weariness to the flesh. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. Truth is, this book could have gone on and on and on. There's no end to turning over the complexities of life and asking what the meaning of our lives is and wondering about why things are the way they are. There's no end to the making of books, but there are limits to wisdom. You can't just go on and on and on turning over the complexities. At some point, you got to live your life. And one of the hardest things about Ecclesiastes is coming to grips with the fact that there are no immediate answers for some of the things in life. And we are limited. Some things we won't know. And so sometimes we come to the end of what can be said. We've heard it all. And what is to be done at the end of wisdom? Fear God. Keep his commandments. For this is our whole duty. This is the beginning of wisdom, and it's the end of wisdom. The book of Proverbs says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And now we come to the end, and the end takes us back to the beginning of all that wisdom will give you. This is what you really need to live before God and walk with God in the way that he shows us. For God will bring every deed into judgment. It's interesting, isn't it, that the book finishes with judgment, because the one certainty that we're faced with again and again in the book is the certainty of death. And it's as if to say, enjoy your life, but the most foolish thing that you can do is to make your life one extended exercise in avoiding the reality of what's coming. Death and then judgment. And the message of the book is not that nothing matters, but that everything matters, because this is not all there is. If life under the sun is all there is, then it's hard to see how anything we do matters, and that's part of the point. Life would be meaningless indeed, but for God. But if there's a God who will judge the world, and if there is a life that comes after this life, then everything matters. Because one day, whether we are ready to come before God or whether we're trying to avoid it, every person will stand before God. And if you're not prepared for that day, then you have lived your life truly in vain, because there's so much more. Eternity is set in the hearts of mankind. And the only one who could rescue us from this vanity has come as one of us to save us. Our Savior entered the vain world, the vanity of the world, and suffered all of this, the frustrations and futility of life. But Jesus came with a purpose. He came so that judgment would not be the last word. He came so that grace would be the last word. And when the time was right, he took the judgment that we deserve by dying for our sins on the cross. He faced death. He didn't try to avoid it. And he brought life out of the grave and made a mockery of death. So yes, everything will matter. How you used your time will matter. It will matter what we did with our money, with our bodies, and what we said will matter. The cup of cold water will matter. The tear of compassion, the word of encouragement, the selfless sacrifice. It will matter because there is someone who bore witness to all of it, who saw every single deed, the good and the bad. But then what matters most of all is what you did with the person of Jesus Christ. If it's true that God will bring everything to judgment, then it is desperately important for us to make sure that we will be found righteous on that day. And the only way to stand confidently before God is to entrust your life to Jesus Christ, who alone has the power to save us from judgment. Without the cross of Jesus Christ, all of life really is in vain. Let's pray.